Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Nesara 17 channel. We are so blessed this Saturday morning on the 3rd of February, 2024. We're so blessed to have Chantelle from Aquarius Rising Africa. And we are doing this on Saturday morning because of the time difference. So welcome, everybody, and good morning. Hello, Chantelle.
Hey, it's evening or afternoon here already. But good to be here. Thank you so much. Yeah, I know you were supposed to do it on Aquarius Rising's channel, but I've had sound issues and laptop issues, so it's really just good to be able to know that everything is working. Thank you, Brock. How are you doing?
Oh, I'm hanging in there. I am happy that I actually got a good night's sleep, which is rare for me, so.
Yeah, it's terrible that, I know there's a lot of, and it's not just you at the moment. I got to tell you, it's going around all over. There's definitely something in the air. I think just with the world is in such a crazy place right now, and I can certainly feel it. Obviously I'm a healer. I speak to a lot of clients and I have students and groups and things like that. And a lot of people are going through a lot of major shifts in their lives right now, and health issues, some of them, and just emotional stuff going on, divorces, separations, kids playing up. I think there's a lot of turmoil in people's lives right now, and it's in the air. I mean, I want to say it's in the frequencies in the air, but it's all over. And but seriously, what we're experiencing in the world right now, with all these crazy creatures of the night sneaking through portals and showing themselves and revealing themselves, it really is end times, as we've been told and maybe warned about since forever. So I think it's all just part and parcel of that. Yeah? What do you say about that?
Well, of course, the evil demonic entities are always going to try and to attack us. But the scripture says, put on the full armor of God. I believe your spirit has to be renewed or born again to be in line with Yahweh, with his spirit and Yeshua. And then once you get that, then you have to communicate with him daily and keep that relationship. One thing that I would always go back and forth with in my head is, Jesus said, I'm just going to use this as an example for myself. If I see a pretty girl and I look at her in lust, I've sinned there. So I would always go back and forth in my head. Do I deserve the protection because I'm a sinner? And I'm going to say now, that's the bad way or the opposite way to think. He knows you're a sinner. He died on the cross. He paid for everybody's sins. So just accept it and receive it. I was overanalyzing it and making it, I was really feeling so much guilt. And then I realized that guilt was coming from the enemy. So nobody is perfect, okay? None of us. We have a goal to strive. And in my mind, that's to live out what Yeshua did, what Jesus did, how he lived. And I believe that he lived, a perfect life. And he's the example. So I'm always going to fall short of that, but I don't have to constantly feel guilty about it. I'm striving towards that. I'm working towards that to live out what he said, but I just have to take what he did and accept it. So to relate that with the armor of God is say, I am protected. I have supernatural protection. You just receive it. It's that simple. So for somebody like me that has an analytical mind, I overanalyze everything. I'm so guilty of this and just playing scenarios out in my head. What did I do wrong? Did I make God mad? Is he mad at me? And, he's not. He loves us. He already forgave us. So if you're like that and you think about things a lot and you're in your own head, don't do that. Just accept it. Say, I have that protection. I am protected because I am a child of God. That's if you're dealing with spiritual attacks or, bad things happening or whatever, just claim it and receive it.
I'm going to totally agree with you there. And I'm going to actually add on my 10 cents worth to that, because I want to say, I don't know. I don't know if I know anyone on the chat here, but I'm a healer, and I have been a healer for more than 20 years. And I've devised my own style of doing things. I was born with just knowing certain things, and over the years, it has been my task, if you will, from God, to take something very abstract, because I could hear things, see things, understand things, perceive things that I know, I mean, and all the way from birth, that I understand people around me couldn't do. And so my job, if you will, was to take that something very abstract and turn it into something that people could understand. So something more tangible, right? And that's what I've been able to do. And one of the big things that we really need to understand is emotions. Now, we have emotions. We have good emotions, which, of course, is joy, peace, happiness, kindness, compassion, all of that stuff. Those are all emotions, right? And then, of course, we have the underbelly of that, because we live in a world of polarities. And guilt, for sure, and I've said this for a very long time, guilt is the most destructive emotion in the fear-based camp. As long as we have guilt, that translates into a sense of non-deservability, which translates into lack of abundance. In other words, I don't deserve it, so I'm not going to get it. And that's the narrative that plays out subconsciously in your mind all the time. So guilt is a bugger.
Can you say that again? Say that sequence again, whether you ended with lack of abundance.
As long as you have guilt, there's a sense, you have a sense of non-deservability. And non-deservability translates into lack of abundance. Now, let's look at abundance. A lot of people think I'm talking about abundance being money. Absolutely not only. Money is a teeny tiny facet of abundance. Money is really energy, right? Everything in life is energy, right? So money is simply an aspect of that. But because the controllers right now have turned it into something so huge, that's where we focus our attention, and that's the deception. Abundance is an abundance of friendship, an abundance of good health, an abundance of joyful feelings, an abundance of a happy life, right? An abundance of and yes, wealth too. So we have to be able to understand what abundance truly is. So when you're feeling guilty about anything, and guilt, it's like taking a drop of poison and dropping it into water. You can't separate that poison from the water. Once it's in the water, it's in the water, and it's going to contaminate that water all over, right? It's going to contaminate all the water. So you have to be able to look at your guilt, see what it's about, and transform it, transmute it back into a sense of freedom. Because energy can never be created or destroyed, only ever transferred or transformed. So the first thing I want to say about that is, we've got to cut ourselves some slack, because we give ourselves such a hard time. We really, really do, And if,
yes.
I mean, we are human beings. That's really what we are at the end of the day. And if as human beings, you have a bad thought or lustful thought or whatever, you got to stop persecuting yourself about that. My question is, what do you do with that thought? Are you going to act on it? And how do you act on it? You see, that's where the problem or the sin comes in, is if you act on it, right? I mean, if someone sort of puts a movie or whatever in front of you, and suddenly you have for 5 seconds a lustful thought about that, that's just you being human.
Right.
And we've got to be able to say, you know what, thanks for showing me, but no thank you. And immediately you can then take that and direct your energies back to your wife or your partner or your kids or whatever it is, and understand that you are being human, and forgive yourself in the moment for whatever it is, right? Forgive yourself in that moment. Because I always look, you know, when I do stuff, and I'm always criticized for a whole lot of stuff, but I don't really let it get me down at all. But I will always say, I mean,
I totally can relate to that.
Yeah. I mean, I look at stuff, and I would say, for example, I mean, Jesus was the ultimate healer, right? So a lot of my energy and my healing work comes from that. And I look at it like that. And I would say, well, what would Jesus do now? And I think we must also remember Jesus, when he was here, was a man. I think many of us have glorified him to the point that we thought he actually never had a bad or a painful thought. I mean, what do you think when he was crucified? Do you think he didn't feel pain then? Of course he did. You think he didn't feel the, you think he didn't feel the, yeah, I wouldn't just say
he felt, I think he felt everything: physical pain, emotional pain, abandonment. And some people, this is going to be really betrayal, but this will be really out there. The Romans used to sexually abuse people too when they were in jail. So there's a possibility that he experienced that too, which is disgusting. It's disgusting, but that means that he knows everything. There's nothing that he didn't feel.
Of course. And it's, I mean, and it's also well documented that, you know, when he saw people selling animals for sacrifice, he absolutely, I mean, there's some stories that I'm hearing, he was whipping those people.
He did. No, and you know what he did too? He picked up the tables that what they were doing is exchanging foreign currencies for the local Israeli currency. I don't know if it was called a shekel back then, but that's what it is now. And he was lifting the table and flipping it over. And we have to remember, he was a carpenter. They didn't have power tools 2,000 years ago. Yeshua was probably pretty muscular. You know, I'm willing to bet that he was very physically fit and strong because he was a carpenter and there was no power tools. So people will say, you know, he was. I'm just going to interject quickly. People focus on the love of Christianity and loving your neighbor and stuff. That's great, but I think sometimes they take it too far and they squash, you know, what I'm going to call healthy masculinity, which is being a good leader, taking care of your family, making sure that, you know, things are done, provided for, etc. And I'm pretty sure he embodied that, and that's what he wanted. He wasn't a weak person mentally or physically, and we have to remember that.
Well, I think, you know, just in that, if we just look at that from, as you say, just flipping the tables over and whipping the Pharisees or whoever they were for selling animals for sacrifice and stuff like that, he was pissed off. He'd had enough, you know. So, of course, he had emotion. But again, the question is, what do you do with that emotion? We cannot deny that we're human beings and we have these feelings. We do get frustrated. We do get angry. We do get heartsore. We do get heartbroken, you know. But what do we do with those feelings? Do we take them to God?
Exactly.
Or do we act out on them? And sometimes, you know, I mean, when I feel betrayal and when I feel mad at someone about something, and I feel so justified to feel the way that I do, the big part of me knows that my reactions right now are probably not very mature or probably not very in line with God's will for me. But as a human being, I understand that that's how I'm reacting in this moment. So it's okay to feel this way. Just don't act out on it. Take a breath, breathe 10 times, grab your journal, write, get up, off your backside, go and walk on the beach, take a swim in the ocean, go to the forest, take a drive in your car, do whatever it is, but don't act on it.
Go for a walk.
Exactly. Because when you think about it, you know, when you just take some time to let things mull through your head and there's a big difference between a reaction and a response, right? So when you're not reacting, reacting is really that knee-jerk reaction. So you're not acting on your lustfulness. You're not acting on those desires.
You're not acting on your anger, you know.
Exactly. And
we have a choice. Yeah, we have a choice of what we can be or what we want to be angry at. And somebody said that to me a long time ago, which resonated with me big time. You are in control of your own emotions and your anger. You can do it. And the guy was telling me that because I was hot-headed. You know, I worked out like crazy in my teens and early 20s, like a maniac all the time. And, you know, in a man especially, it'll really get your testosterone going, and you can get angry quicker. This, you know, this is scientific. And he said, you know, you don't have to get angry. You are in control. Who's in control of your emotions? Your buddy over there or you? And I said, you know what? The man's got a point. And then I started working on myself.
And that's what we call the shadow work, you know, because when you know, let's talk about what the shadow is. Shadow is really the part of yourself that you don't know very well, that you don't understand very well, or that you don't like very much, right? And then we try and hide it. We try and suppress it. That's the worst thing anyone can do. Because the more you suppress something, the more it's going to blow itself up, and boom, then there's the explosion. That's when you have the problem. But if you actually are strong enough, courageous enough to say, you know what, I've got plenty blind spots in my life. I can see that I've been betrayed many times over, and I don't react well to betrayal. And that, you know, these things then become self-fulfilling prophecies, because we've got to understand that everything in life is energy. Your body is a resonance chamber created from sound, frequency, and vibration. So when you have a lot of toxic emotions permeating out of you, and like a magnet, right? And the one thing that never lies is energy. It's your energy. And like a magnet, we have a force that permeates from within us that repels and attracts. So that's really what it is. So when you, in your life, are constantly dealing with people who are, let's say, betraying you, you've got to ask yourself the question, well, I am my point of attraction. Why am I constantly needing to deal with that? So the minute you then start changing, because the opposite of betrayal is truth. Because remember, we live in a polarized world. So when you're looking at the opposite of betrayal, it's truth, because betrayal equals deception, really.
Right.
So what is the truth of my betrayal? And that's when I say to people, and this is where a lot of people find it very difficult, because they don't like to look, they like to, it's always somebody else that did it to me. They like to blame others. I say the minute you blame somebody else, you are absolutely doing yourself the biggest disservice ever, because you are turning yourself into a victim. Because when you're blaming somebody else, you're saying somebody did something to me. And I'm not saying they didn't, of course. So you see, here's where the fine line sits. You can have 10 people who've all done something to you in a terrible way. And I'm not saying it's okay, and I'm not saying they didn't do it, but I'm saying you are your point of attraction. And if you go right back to the ancient scriptures, they talk about this all the time, and so did Jesus, but just in a different language. This is why I say to people, when I get accused of being New Age, I'm not New Age. I work with ancient principles in a modern day world. Our language has changed. We've become more modernized, so we use different language. New Age is this whole toxic positivity. I'm far from toxic positivity. I'm real.
I'm sorry, can you define what that is? I haven't heard that term before.
What? Define what?
Toxic positivity.
It's like, you know, it's love and light, everything is fine. I just have to sit and, you know, it's all going to come to me. And they'll take, for example, law of attraction in this toxic positive way. And, you know, everything is going to be fine. I don't need to do anything. You know, it's like the universe is taking care of me. I'm going, no. The universe, God, source, your creator, whatever I like to call God, and my divine creator, right? That's for me. God takes care of those who take care of themselves. So when you're full of shit, excuse my language, and when you constantly are in a situation where you are being betrayed, I'm going to say to you, Where have you betrayed you? Where have you betrayed yourself into believing that this is the best that life has to offer you? Where have you
or maybe that's just what you're used to in your own family life, and then you have to realize, I don't need people like that in my own life, so I can cut them out and find better friends to have. That doesn't have to be my normal.
Unless you are changing the frequency that you are emitting, because you are your point of attraction. So unless you change the frequency you are putting out there, you are constantly going to be attracting that which is in you. It's called the mirror. It's called projection.
So how do you change that frequency? Let's say you're attracting people that constantly betray you. How do you attract it?
That's what I'm saying right now, is when you notice this, it's like lifting the veils off your eyes. When you notice, now in the last year, I've had 10 people betraying me, and I get so mad and I want to take them to lawyers, and I want to have them locked up in jail, and I want to have people beat them up because how dare they be so mean? And I'll sit and I'll complain about them all the time to my friends and my family. All you're doing when you're doing that is creating more of that energy. Everything is energy. You're creating more of something you don't want. And energy goes where attention flows, right? So the more you're talking about these things, no matter whether you're in the right or wrong, you create more of that, which means you're going to attract more of that to yourself. So when you open your eyes and say, right, I need to do things differently. This is the point where we get to a point of saying, I need to do things differently. So then you can say to yourself, right, where have I betrayed me into believing that this is the best that life has to offer me? Where have I betrayed myself into lying to myself? Because let's look at acts of self-betrayal. Going to a job every day that you hate because you think you have to do it, because that's the only thing that can pay the bills. That's an act of self-betrayal. Always saying yes when you should be saying no. That's an act of self-betrayal. Really? And remember, oh yes. And every part of your body means something. So now we look at your body. Remember, your body is a resonance chamber.
That's true.
Each part of your body means something. So then suddenly we start getting sick. Now, cancer is an emotional disease. Now, you look at, for example, where do most women get cancer, right? Breast cancer and ovarian, right, in their feminine parts. Breasts are nurturing. You look at what it means. So, for example, your breasts are what you nurture. As a woman, you nurture your babies. You feed your babies with your breasts, right? So right side is masculine, left side is feminine. So where have I not nurtured me? Everything that is out there, you start taking back to yourself. And I know this, I've healed myself from breast cancer.
Wow.
And at the same time, I was bitten by a black widow spider. By right, so I should be dead. I had cancer in my right breast.
Those are no joke.
Yeah, and I was bitten by a black widow spider on my left hip.
Wow.
So I had to transform or die. That was my choice. And I sat with myself and I prayed and I meditated. And I went into my body and I spoke to my body. Your body is the most intelligent vehicle you'll ever possess. It's the most highly amazing, beautiful vehicle you will ever possess. Your body contains around 30 trillion cells. One cell contains enough information to write 1,000 books of 600 pages each.
Wow.
So when you start looking inside of your body and you start speaking to your body speaks back to you. Your cells are listening. Your body is your spirit or your soul in physical form. Think about that. Think about that. It is the vehicle in which your soul expresses itself in this world. So when you start seeing your body as that, And yes, is it a temporary vehicle? For the moment, absolutely it is. It doesn't mean that it's a useless meat suit and there's a pill for everything. You see, Big Pharma has taught us that, right? Big Pharma has taught us that we are...
Well, doesn't the scripture say your body is a temple?
Mm-hmm.
I can tell you that's why I don't have any tattoos, because I grew up in the Orthodox Church and they said you can't have tattoos because your body's a temple.
Well, mine's an amusement park as well. That's why I say I love having my body as a temple, and it's an amusement park, and we have lots of fun together. I'll tell you that much. And that's why I say we need to loosen up. We need to learn how to have more fun in life. We need to learn how to enjoy our lives in such an amazing way, because that's what God wants for us.
I agree.
God wants us to have joy in our lives. And most of us who are coming from these strict religious indoctrinations have no idea how to have fun. We have no idea
something?
how to have fun. Yeah.
It's just a quick question. Do you think that it's a sin to get tattoos?
Well, I have tattoos, so no, I don't think it's a sin.
Okay.
I think,
because I've heard people say that.
I mean, I think, you know, people love judging. And this is what I say is like, and I know I take a lot of flack from this, but when I look at the Christians, right? And there's a difference for me, a believer and a Christian. Christians are unbelievably judgmental. The very thing that Jesus has taught Christians not to be is exactly what Christians are. I mean, I've traveled a lot. I've lived in Thailand. I've studied in India. I've been to the Middle East. I've worked with people in the Middle East. Not one person that I've worked with there has ever condemned Christianity, ever. In fact, they speak about Jesus in the highest way. Yet that's all I hear from Christians, condemning and judging other forms of faith or religion. For me, I see the beauty in them all. I see the beauty in every single thing. People see the devil in everything. I see God in everything. When my fiance was killed in a hijacking, I saw God. I saw God as teaching me to overcome and transcend loss. And what is the opposite of loss? Gain. And I will say to you, it's happened many years ago now. But to this day, I will give that situation credit for doing the work I do today. I will always say, Hannes, he was an Austrian, left this earth plane for me. Because since he left, I started doing the work I do today. I started growing my spirit in the most incredible way. That's why I say you can see the devil in everything, or you can see God in everything. I choose to see everything I do has got a smidgen of God. I mean, God created Lucifer, didn't he? God never makes mistakes. So let's start asking why God created Lucifer.
Well, he created him to be an angel of worship. And then Lucifer decided to go against him.
Well, do you not think God would have understood that Lucifer probably was going to do that?
Yeah, but everybody has free will. It was his choice.
Exactly. But God understood the potential.
We have a choice to follow him or not. If he made us all robots to just worship him all day, then it would defeat the purpose and it wouldn't be love, you know.
Exactly. But when you can take a situation so toxic and so terrible, and you can turn it around and you can transmute it back into God's grace, that's when you know you've understood the full lesson of what it's all been about. That's when you know you've understood God's will. Every negative situation has an opportunity to turn into something very beautiful and very positive. And that's what I've learned. And that's why people come and see me, because that's where the alchemy sits. I do spiritual or soul alchemy, turning lead into gold. And it's not physical. Lead being one of the densest, heaviest metals that there is.
Right.
In other words, that would then represent on a spiritual level your pain, your fears, your whatever it is those heavy, horrible feelings. Now we take that and we look at all of that and we learn how to turn it around, because remember, energy can never be created or destroyed, only ever transferred or transformed. So you learn how to turn that around back into creative light, into a creative force. And that's when your spirit expands. That's when your soul expands. That's when you elevate. That's when you expand. And that's when you write about these things.
Yeah. I always have been thinking about this since I've got really serious into the truther community. We learn about really negative stuff, corruption, them from hurting kids to, I don't know, whatever you want to say, hurting the environment, all kinds of stuff, the chemtrails, which are polluting the soils. A lot of the stuff we learn in the truther community is negative. How do we balance the information that we learn, which is ultimately helping us to grow, but not stay in that negative mindset and become a better person? How do we balance that?
Well, again, you've got to, it's all about discernment. And, I live very, for me, is law of attraction. Understanding you are created from sound, frequency, and vibration, right? Now, what your experiences in life, your health issues in life, etc., have your own unique blueprint, if you will. All of us are unique to that. So whatever you emanating, it's like if you're going to go and sit in there and play with a pigs or whatever it is, you're going to find what pigs do. You're going to hang out with the pigs. You're going to see their or experience their experiences, right? So that's true to life. When you decide that you want something different, that's when faith comes into it, prayer and meditation. That's when you are guided. When you actually pray, you have that faith and you say, okay, I know that what I'm creating it's taking responsibility, understanding that you have the power to create for yourself something different. Your parents might have done certain things to you. Absolutely. And that might have left you feeling in a certain way. But that doesn't mean that that is what you have to be for the rest of your life. You can change that. You can take that and you can turn that situation around and say, instead of, Mom, what did you do to me? It's because of you I am like this. Or Dad, because of you I am like, or whatever. I would say, turn that around and say, thank you for being that for me. Thank you for being betrayal for me, because your betrayal enables me to see the truth of who I am. Do you see what I'm saying? Thank you for being abused for me, because your abuse has shown me my strength, my power. Your abuse has shown me how to be the best healer ever. So when you can take that, and when you make that decision, you meet people. It's like God opens those doors, because we are all created in the image of God. God lives within each and every one of the cells of your body. And when you unlock those cells and you start speaking to God who is within you, not external to you. You see, I think that's where a lot of us actually miss the boat. God lives.
Do you start by doing a physical cleanse to get your spirit in line with the Creator?
Absolutely. It's as human beings, we are created from four, right? Like the legs of the table: spirit, spiritual, emotional, mental, physical. And like the four legs of the table, they need to be balanced. Otherwise, the table is wonky. All of us have been to a restaurant, right, when you've had a wonky table. And it's very irritating. Now think about if those four aspects of yourself are not balanced, you're constantly living an imbalanced life. And that's when dis-ease occurs in the body. Any illness in the body is simply the body being is not at ease. right? This is why over the years, I have worked with people, I've guided them to heal themselves, incurable diseases. I'm talking cancer, I'm talking multiple sclerosis, I'm talking lupus, I'm talking muscular dystrophy. I'm talking those kinds of illnesses. I've worked with people. I'm talking mental issues. I'm talking severe depression. I'm talking about people who've been pedophiles. When they've understood the principles I talk about, it unlocks a door. It enables those entities and energies to be released. It's like unplaiting knotted hair. Suddenly the hair you can comb again. That's what happens. Think about someone who has like a knotted hair that hasn't brushed their hair for 1,000 years. And suddenly it's like putting conditioner on the hair and you can just comb through that hair again. That's what it is. That's what I'm talking about. So the first thing you understand is your spiritual. You've got to completely align with your spirit, with God's desire for you. God's will for you is your will for you. Your will for you is God's will for you.
Can you explain how to do that?
Yeah. Through prayer, through meditation, through deciding. It's a decision. Decision is the most important thing that anyone will ever do. Decide. Decide that you've had enough. Decide. Because once you've had enough, that's when you make that decision. And very often people will come and see me when they've reached their wits' end. I always say, you're so sick and tired of being sick and tired that you know everything you've tried has not worked. Now, let's try another way. So you make that decision. It's like, and you see, from many of us, our spirit has been locked away in a dark room. It's like suddenly unlocking that door, striking a match, and now you can see the light. So you, and it's called the Agni, the fire, because God's spirit, like as Rumi says, there's a sun within each and every one of us. Your soul, your spirit is depicted like a sun, and like the rays of the sun suddenly start shining again. Before that, they might be all inverted and twisted up and curled up and, you know, that sort of thing. So now you feel something inside of you just goes boom, it starts waking up. Suddenly something within you starts waking up. Then the next leg, once we've dealt with that, we look at the emotions. Emotions are the fuel in your body. When you are toxic and angry and hateful, I promise you, you're probably going to get sick. Most people who are having those feelings end up getting sick. You look at the parts of the body that people get sick, and I can tell you exactly what emotions they're suffering from.
Can you give an example?
Well, yeah, I'll give an example to myself. I had cancer in my right breast, and I was super angry with men at that time in my life. Super. I hated them. Right side of the body is masculine, right? So it had everything to do with my relationships with men and my own, because we have a masculine, feminine side within us, right? As a human being, you have yin and yang, masculine and feminine within you. But that depicted my own inability to understand my masculine energy. And the minute I got that right, I will tell you, within 4 months, my lump was gone. It was gone.
How did you realize that? Like, what was the breaking point?
I'm not sure what you mean. How did I realize what?
About that your imbalance, your masculine energy wasn't balanced.
Well, I could see. I obviously saw which part of my body was being affected, and then I knew what it meant. And through prayer, meditation, I went into it. And every time, and what happened was the lump would come up, and then I would work with it, and through meditation, prayer, journaling, as well as obviously doing things on a physical level, supporting my body physically, it just became smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller, and eventually it didn't come back.
That's amazing.
That's what, and my spirit, and I mean, you feel it when you start going, I mean, it's like, oh my gosh, of course that's what it is. It's like having that eureka moment, that aha moment, kaboom, suddenly the cells awaken. and it's like everything radiates out of you. You feel completely different. It's like layers of blankets get taken off you. It's like the veils start lifting before your eyes.
Wow.
And then I just started, it's like my nature, my personality started changing. I could look at certain situations and I wasn't triggered by them anymore. I understood why I needed to experience that in my life. Every negative opportunity, every negative thing that occurs is an opportunity for growth. So I could see why that person coming into my life that triggered me to the point that they did was God had sent them there to me so that I could grow. They were not there to persecute me or to crush me. Just like pain in your body is not there to crush you to crush you. It's there to take you to a deeper level of awareness. And when you work with the pain, you go into where the pain is. Think about pain. I mean, when a child's in pain, when an animal's in pain, it shouts, ow, ow, ow.
Mm-hmm.
And then you go, okay, hang on, what's going on? My arm's sore. Then you go in and you help sort of sort the arm out, whatever, right? Same thing with your body. The pain in your body. And what do? We go to the doctor and the doctor just gives us chemicals and cuts it out and, does whatever. My body was so scared of a knife. I'll tell you something. One of the first steps that I saw was how terrified my body was of having a knife cut it. And I said to my body, I promise you, I will not put you under the knife. And within 24 hours of saying that, the lump went to half its size.
That's amazing.
And then I knew.
Were you on a special diet or anything as well, or no?
Yeah, I was, but it wasn't a diet that anyone put me under. I was then looking and I could feel my body and I wanted that food. No, it made me nauseous. I tried that and I would go to shops, whatever, and I'd buy stuff. I knew that I wanted lots of veggies. I wanted lots of leafy, like spinaches and stuff like that. That's what my body was asking for. I was craving stuff like that. And then certain foods I just didn't want. And I woke up one morning and I just knew that, this is my body telling me what I need to heal. So I just started giving myself more of that. And I'm telling you, all of that worked hand in hand, because then as I healed my emotions, right, the third step is your mental, in other words, your perception, the way you think about things, the way you see the world. The way I saw the world changed completely. And it was amazing because, and as a healer in my practice at the time, I then started attracting men clients into my life. And my relationship with the whole male species changed because I stopped seeing men as arseholes who were trying to hurt women. Mm-hmm. I saw them as very vulnerable beings who were incredibly fragile and who had hearts of gold. And I started understanding a man's love language. And just by speaking with men, me as their healer, them as my clients, asking them different questions, they started giving me very different answers. And that changed my whole perception on men. And I've always had a very loving father, okay? But my father was not the best husband to my mother, I'll tell you that much. So I was very torn between my father and my mother's husband, if that makes sense. And I had to figure out that, and that was one of the big things for me. That absolute betrayal of the masculine. And what did I do? I kept attracting men in my relationships that were doing that time and time again, and worse.
And then when I believe that there's, go ahead, I'll let you finish, sorry.
Now, I just want to say, when I changed my perception of that, I then made peace with my own being, my inner being. I made peace with that. And I've absolutely loved that. I mean, and I've had two very strong partners and both of them have died, right? And I'd say to God, well, thank you. I know that you freaking hate me. Thank you. But it wasn't that at all. It was understanding on a much deeper level what that meant for me. And now where I am in my life, I'm a very strong person. I've integrated my masculine, my feminine energy very well as a woman. I know how to assert myself, and it doesn't mean I'm a butch.
For
You
so
okay, sure what's in here, but you can't hear me anymore. So my internet seems fine. Can you rock?
I can only hear Hello?
Hi, can you hear me?
I can now. You were cutting out really bad.
Okay, I could. All right, well, I hope we're back now. But anyway,
Can
I
you
think
hear
it's
me?
probably... Yeah, I can hear you fine.
Oh, yeah. You were cutting out really bad. I couldn't hear anything you were saying.
Right. Well, yeah, I think that's kind of in a nutshell, and I think that, yeah, when you say, do you change, do you change the food? Absolutely. Food is your medicine. So what you put into your body is what you're going to get out of it. It's as simple as that. So when you start eating decent food and you start growing your own food in that way, it makes a big difference.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense?
100%. I'm glad that, we went over that. Do you want to wrap it up? And
yeah, for sure. So, oh, where am I now? Can you still hear me?
yes.
Okay, I don't know. I'll press, oh, there, I'm back. Okay. So, yeah, I mean, I just, I think at the end of the day, it's really important for us to recognize just how powerful our bodies are, how beautiful our bodies are. And when we start seeing our bodies in that way, we are a manifestation. Your body is a manifestation of your spirit. It is your spirit in physical form. And when you understand in the cell of your body is God lives within each and every cell of your body. And when you know this, there's never a day that you can think about yourself in a hateful way again. You could never speak bad about yourself again. You could never hate yourself again. And, you start growing in a very different way. Your consciousness starts growing. And it's not an egotistical thing. It's actually a humbling thing. It's very humbling when you know that. It sort of brings you down instead of walking around with an ego the size of China, if that makes sense. So, yeah.
Yes, that does make sense. Well, the first thing we have to do in order to learn, which everybody in this truther movement, we all should have the open-mindedness to learn. I have to humble myself and say, I don't know everything. I need to learn more. And where is my knowledge deficient, and where can I learn? So staying humble is important. It's very important. And sometimes, you know, as people's channels grow or whatever, they are not as humble. And, you know, I made the promise to myself that I would make sure that I didn't get a big head, as they say, when the channel grows and stuff. So I just want to say that I appreciate everybody that listens to this, and make sure to go and subscribe to Chantelle's YouTube, which is called Aquarius Rising Africa. She has Telegram, and I do too. All of my stuff is called Nesara 17. I have YouTube, Rumble, Telegram. So we appreciate all of you, and we would like to do a Ask Me Anything. So if you're listening to this, you know, I would really like to advertise it at least a week ahead of time and do an Ask Me Anything with Chantelle. I might be able to get Jeremiah on there too, but I haven't done one of those in a long time, and I would really like to have a lot of participation to do that. Chantelle, are you in on that?
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely. Most definitely. Most definitely. Indeed. Very open to that.
Awesome. All right, everybody. Well, have a very blessed day, and I appreciate you joining. And Chantelle, any final words?
No, I think I've said what I want to say, really. I mean, it was kind of like I know this was an unplanned conversation. Just kind of went in this direction of just healing yourself, loving yourself. That's really what it is, you know, and this is what's going to be our saving grace at the end of the day. You know, to not look to everyone around us, especially at these times, you know, to stop looking to be saved, if you will, by whether it's politicians or other people or countries or powerful beings or whatever it is. You know, God lives within all of us, and we all have that direct access to God when and if we choose it. So for all of us to recognize how amazing we as individuals are, and the strength and the power that lives within us. And strength is not something that we go out there with our big chest wielding a sword and chopping everyone's head off. True strength is compassion, it's kindness, it's generosity. It doesn't mean, you know, and that's why I say, I look at Jesus. Jesus was definitely no pushover, right? But he certainly, I mean, he raised his voice when he needed to and said, screw you, I'm not doing that, you know. He stood up, you know, what Jesus did was he actually stood up against authority, right? He was not going to be subjected to any nonsense like that. Why? Because he knew the strength, and he knew he belonged to God. There was not even a question in his mind around that. He had ultimate faith. I mean, and even at the end, you know, what was the famous words he said? Forgive them, Father, they know not what they do. You know, that is the ultimate forgiveness. And that doesn't make him a martyr. Jesus knew he had to do what he had to do. That was how he chose to go. You know, he chose to be the sacrifice for humanity in many ways. That he volunteered for that. It wasn't something that was forced upon him. He volunteered for that. And it's like, you know, so many times when people do things or say things are mean and what have you, it's, yeah, absolutely, forgive them. They know not what they do. Their eyes are still closed. But that doesn't mean that you've got to be pulled down as well. That should be something that absolutely elevates you energetically and not egotistically. There's a big difference between being out there with a swollen head type thing or being humble and really doing God's work on grassroots level. And I think that's what we're called to do right now. And it certainly doesn't make us weak. It makes us strength. That's where our strength actually lies.
I agree.
So, yeah, absolutely.
Well, thank you so much for joining, everybody. And please make sure to subscribe to Chantelle's and my channel, and have a very blessed Saturday.
Thank you, everybody. And I'll see you later. I'm on the Aquarius Rising Africa Got Later with Caleb Jade and Jerry Marzinski. Very interesting conversation. That's going to be at an hour and a half from now. So, yeah, look forward to seeing you guys later. Thank you so much.